Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be narrating 3 unnerving stories from Reddit. I would like to make a deal with you. If any of these stories send a chill down your spine, then I would greatly appreciate a follow. It helps the channel immensely. Make sure to stay to the end because the last story will creep you out. Without further ado, let's get into it. A couple of years ago, I moved into a rural house. I wanted to get away from the city. Too much noise, too much chaos. This place was perfect. No neighbors, surrounded by thick woods. It was quiet, peaceful at first. But now, I realized that silence can feel wrong, almost alive. At first, it was small things. Doors that I know I closed would be slightly open when I'd come back to the room. It was easy to brush off. I told myself I must have just forgotten. Old houses creak, right? But then, the noises started. Faint tapping, almost like a rhythmic knock, coming from inside the walls. It wasn't consistent enough for me to figure out where it was coming from, but it was persistent enough that I noticed. And every time I got up to check, it would stop, like it was waiting. One night, I was lying in bed when I heard the noise again, but this time, it wasn't from the walls. It was outside, slow, deliberate knocks on the window, right by my headboard. The problem? My bedroom was on the second floor. I froze. My heart felt like it was going to explode. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. I just stared at the ceiling, praying it would stop. And it did. For a moment, but then the knocks turned into scratching, faint but deliberate, like something was testing the glass. I wanted to look, but I couldn't bring myself to move. And then, just as suddenly, it stopped. Complete silence. But somehow, the silence felt even worse. The next morning, I forced myself to go outside to check. I told myself it was just a branch or an animal, but what I found, it still gives me chills. In the dirt below my bedroom window, there were footprints, bare human footprints. They led from the edge of the woods, straight to the wall beneath my window. And when I followed them into the trees, they didn't fade the farther I went. They got clearer, fresher. That's when I saw it. There, in a small clearing, was this structure. It wasn't quite a hut, more like a crude shelter thrown together with branches and debris. And inside, I found things that didn't belong there. A child's toy, a rusty knife, and the worst part, a framed photo of me. It was the picture I'd posted online just a week before. Me, smiling in front of the house, excited about my new beginning. The glass in the frame was cracked, and the photo had smudges on it, like someone had been holding it for too long. I ran back to the house, locked every door and window, and called the police. When they arrived, they searched the woods, but didn't find much. No sign of anyone, no cameras to check, just the footprints. They told me to be careful, but what could I do? Move out? I'd just gotten here. That night, I barely slept. I sat in the living room with every light on, a kitchen knife clutched in my hand. Around midnight, the tapping came back, louder this time, but not on the walls or the windows. It was at the front door. 3 knocks, slow and deliberate. I don't know where I found the courage, but I crept to the door and looked through the peephole. And what I saw, it makes my stomach turn just thinking about it. Nothing. No one was there. But as I stepped back, my phone buzzed. A text notification. No number, just a single message. Why didn't you answer? I didn't sleep at all after that. The next morning, I packed whatever I could fit in my car and left. I never went back to that house. But even after I moved to a completely different state, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. A few weeks later, I got another text. Same number, same format, just 5 words. I miss our time together. I haven't posted online since. I keep my location hidden, but sometimes I can't help but wonder, did I leave them behind? Or are they just waiting for the right moment? That's it. That's my story. What would you do if it happened to you? Let me know in the comments. And if you've experienced something like this, I hope you found a way to move on. I hope you enjoyed this story and stick around for the last one because it is even scarier. Now let's move on to the second story of today's video. I grew up in a small town, the kind of place where nothing really happens. My family lived in an old house, 2 stories, creaky floors, the works. My parents said it was over 100 years old. The first time I noticed something was off, I was 12. My mom had sent me upstairs to grab something from her room. As I reached the landing, I swear I saw someone standing at the end of the hall, just for a second. A shadow. It was gone before I could even blink. I told myself it was just my imagination. Over the years, strange things would happen. Small things, like lights flickering or doors creaking open on their own. My parents would laugh it off. This old house, they'd say. But it didn't feel funny to me. It felt wrong. Then one night, when I was 16, something happened that I can't forget. My parents were out of town and I was home alone. It was storming, hard, rain pounding against the windows, wind howling. I was lying on the couch watching TV when I heard it. A soft creak, like a footstep, coming from upstairs. I froze. The house was locked and no one else was home. I turned the TV off and sat there, straining to hear. For a moment, there was nothing, just the sound of the storm outside. But then I heard it again, another creak, and this time it was followed by a soft thud. My first thought was that someone had broken in. I grabbed the nearest thing I could use as a weapon, a fireplace poker, and slowly crept up the stairs. My heart was pounding so loud, I thought whoever was up there could hear it. As I reached the top, the hallway stretched out in front of me, dimly lit by a nightlight plugged into the wall. It looked empty, but then I saw it. The door to the guest bedroom, usually closed, was wide open. I stepped closer, gripping the poker so tightly my hands ached. I leaned in just enough to peek inside. At first, it looked normal, just an empty room. But then, my eyes were drawn to the corner, where the old rocking chair sat. It was moving, slowly, back and forth, like someone had just gotten up from it. But no one was there. I backed out of the room, trying to convince myself it was just the wind. But as I turned, I saw something at the end of the hall, something that made my blood turn to ice. A figure, tall, thin, and completely black, like a shadow standing upright. Its head was tilted to the side, as if it was watching me. I blinked, and it was gone. I ran downstairs, heart racing, and locked myself in the bathroom. I didn't come out until morning. When my parents got home, I told them what I saw, but they just brushed it off. "You were imagining things," my mom said. But I knew what I saw, and it wasn't my imagination. After that night, things got worse. The footsteps became more frequent, louder. I'd hear whispers, faint and unintelligible, coming from empty rooms. Once, I woke up to the sound of my bedroom door creaking open. When I turned on the light, it was halfway open, but no one was there. I started sleeping with my door locked after that. The worst night came just before I moved out for college. I was packing my things late at night when the power went out. The house was plunged into darkness, and for a moment, everything was silent. Too silent. Then, from downstairs, I heard it. The sound of the rocking chair, moving slowly, back and forth. I grabbed my flashlight and pointed it toward the stairs. The beam barely lit the bottom step, and then I saw it. The shadow figure. This time, it wasn't at the end of the hall. It was standing at the bottom of the stairs, staring up at me. I dropped the flashlight and ran. I don't even remember leaving the house. I just remember sitting in my car, shaking until the sun came up. I moved out the next day and never went back. My parents still live there. They say nothing's happened since I left. But I can't help wondering, did I leave it behind? Or did it follow me? That's my story. I still can't explain what I saw in that house, or why it seemed to fixate on me. Maybe some places are just wrong. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. That is it for the second story of our video. I'd just like to remind you that if you have enjoyed up until now, subscribing would be extremely helpful to my channel. Now, without waiting any longer, let's get straight into the grand finale. It started as a dumb dare. You know, the kind that always spirals out of control. My friends and I were hanging out in an old abandoned house at the edge of town, the one with the broken shutters and graffiti-covered walls. It was supposed to be just a stupid teenage thrill. Sneak in, tell some ghost stories, then leave. Easy, right? Jake was the one who suggested it. "Let's play the whisper game," he said, grinning like he knew a secret the rest of us didn't. "What's that?" I asked, already regretting coming along. "It's simple," he said. "One person stands in the dark and listens. Everyone else whispers their worst fear into the silence. If the house is really haunted, it'll make your fear come true." I laughed it off, but everyone else seemed way too into it. Before I knew it, they voted me to go first. Typical. I stood in the middle of the room while they scattered into the shadows. The house was dead quiet. No wind, no creaks, nothing. It was like the place was holding its breath. One by one, the whispers started. "I'm scared of drowning," Jake said, his voice soft but sharp in the stillness. "Spiders," Laura muttered, her words almost blending into the darkness. "Being buried alive," Kevin added, a little too gleefully. Then it was silent. For a long time, no one else spoke. I turned around, my pulse racing, ready to call off the whole thing. But then a whisper I didn't recognize drifted through the air. It wasn't any of my friends. The voice was low and raspy, like it had been dragged out of something ancient and starving.
"I'm afraid of you,"
it said. I froze. "Very funny, guys," I said, my voice cracking. But no one answered. The lights we'd set up started flickering, casting weird, jerky shadows across the walls. I turned toward my friends, expecting to see them laughing or pulling some prank. Instead, they were all standing in the same spot, staring at me. Their eyes were wide, unblinking. Their mouths were moving, but no sound was coming out. "What's going on?" I yelled, but they didn't respond. Then I saw it. Behind them, something was moving. It was tall, impossibly thin, its limbs too long and bent at the wrong angles. It leaned in close to Jake, mimicking his whisper.
"I'm scared of drowning,"
before twisting away toward Laura. It was mocking them, repeating their fears like a grotesque echo. When it turned to me, I couldn't breathe. Its face, or what should have been a face, was blank, a shifting void of pale skin and shadow. It leaned close, close enough that I felt its breath on my cheek.
I'm afraid of you.
It whispered again, and this time I knew it wasn't a joke. It wasn't mocking me. It meant it. I don't remember running out of the house. I don't remember much of anything after that, except the sound of my friends screaming behind me. When I went back with the cops the next day, the house was empty. No Jake, no Laura, no Kevin, just their wet footprints leading deeper into the dark, and mine stopping at the front door. If you made it this far, then congratulations. You are one of the few who managed to overcome your fears. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, you can click here for more. See you next time.